Call to the order of the meeting, April 22nd, 2025. Please stand to salute the flag. I pledge allegiance to the flag
of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Finance Director, roll call, please.
Mayor Kurzman?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Burrell?
Yes.
Commissioner Fender?
Here.
Commissioner Mayfield? Commissioner Titigas?
Here.
All right, we have one public comment. Tasso?
Yeah.
Oh, come on up, please. We actually have two public comments.
Hello, Commission. I'm here to comment on Resolution 2025, which I wasn't here when there was a meeting, I guess, about 2 weeks ago that there was discussion on the resolution. And I'm just here to make some general comments on the resolution. Nothing too lengthy. I don't know if I'll even use my 3 minutes. I just want to comment that when I read it, and it says, the town commission shall, should I be speaking into this? Sorry. Sorry about that. The town commission shall determine if the proposed improvements adversely affect adjacent properties. So, and we're looking to increase the buffer from 10 feet to 25 feet. So my first question is, my first concern with that is that there are only about a handful of properties that are not developed. And I'm trying to understand why after everything has been developed, we would change the buffer when everything has already been developed. That's one point that I think. I don't understand the interpretation of adversely because it is a little vague and can be interpreted very broadly. Today's commission sees it one way, a commission in 3 or 4 years will see it another way. Perhaps we can spell out adversities which would clarify what those adversities are. There is, discussion of perhaps property value, but in changing that buffer back, the property value that will certainly be diminished will be that of the owner of the property, not the adjacent properties, because we are now removing some of his rights when he owned the land previously to any change that will be, as defined under certain acts that are in Florida. And I would ask, when we're saying we're going to change that, we have a 10-foot buffer, and in the last 5 years, there have been a multitude, more than 5, perhaps 10 seawalls built, and I don't know that any were reviewed for adversely affecting their neighbors. Those are seawalls. Forget being in the buffer, some of them extend into the river. We have the DEP and the Corps of Engineers protecting the river and the watershed. So why the town would need that additional 15 feet, I ask, why would that be? I'm not aware of, perhaps the town manager or the building can tell us how many of those inquiries were done onto all of the all the improvements that were done in the buffer zone in the last 5 years. So if there were none done in the 10-foot, why would we extend it to the 25-foot after having built all those seawalls? It does also bring in some, I guess, possible Brett Harris Act litigation because of the effect to the property owners that will be affected by that change and opening the city to possible litigation, which I think the city should avoid. And that's basically all I want to mention. I have nothing too serious at this point because, I mean, it's moving forward.
Thank you, Tasa.
Thank you for your time.
All right, Sandra Thurlow, please come on up.
On the proclamation, that's what it's about.
Oh, the proclamation?
Yeah, that's what I'm going to speak on.
Okay,
About
yes,
the
yes,
town. This is when you want me to say something.
yes,
Well,
yes. So I was actually going to do the proclamation, but if you want to talk before the.
no, it's just talking about it.
Oh,
and,
sure.
I mean, I don't know if this is probably the wrong
Go
time.
right, no, it's all right, sure.
So often I get up here and wing it and don't even introduce myself. So I wrote down everything tonight because April asked me to make a comment about the clerk proclamation, not the historic one.
Okay,
My name is Sandra Thurlow, and I've lived in the same house in Indialucy for 50 years. After living on Sewell's Point for 12 years, I started gathering the history of it. At that time, this building was being planned, and the original little town hall was knocked down. The town hall operation was moved to Harbor Bay Plaza in a little storefront next to the gate that's still there. And then it also was the site of the polling place because that happens in our town hall. So it was precinct 10. And I was a volunteer or an employee or whatever it is for the polls. And when I got there, the town clerk, Joan Barrow, had left the history of Sewell's Point compiled by Gail Kiplinger, who was the uncle or the brother of Knight Kiplinger's grandfather. So by the time I finished, there weren't many people voting that day. I had really memorized that piece of mimeographed history that Joan Barrow has given. And I want to introduce Joan. She is here tonight. Will you stand up, Joan? She was clerk of our town for 29 years. And more people have recognized her tonight than recognized me, for sure. Okay, so then that happened, and I was on my way. And at that time, the first town clerk, Gina Neeflin, was still alive, and she supplied photographs of her former home that was at 100 Sewell's Point Road. It just got knocked down, the little house. But it was made from the lumber of a very historic house, and I got to use it in my book. So as you can tell, I have really been supported, and town clerks have been important in my life. So our present town clerk, and where is April tonight?
She's not here tonight.
Yes, well, I hope she'll hear about this because she's the one that asked me to do it. Well, she was given a day off, and she went to one of my historic lectures. And then afterwards, I didn't know her. She was new, but she emailed me and said that her name, she signed it as from the clerk, and she said, also known as history buff. And then, of course, that just made me love her. And then after that, she started the proclamations for Captain Sewall on his birthday, which is August 22nd. And so that has led to a lot of nice relationships and also educating about history. And so you can see that I, have benefited so much from town clerks. And I want to say that, so April was a history buff, as she said, but Joan was a history buff. And these pictures that are on the wall, she's kind of forgotten that she was responsible for every single one of them, because she said, gosh, I don't remember those, but they were what she orchestrated. She got the beautiful framing done, and she had them hung. She got, town clerks can kind of guide commissioners. Isn't that true? So I just want to say that we certainly should appreciate and make this proclamation for our clerks. Thank you.
thank you, Sandra. All right. With that, we have our first proclamation, which would be Municipal Clerks Week.
Can I just say something?
And-
I remember when I first moved here, and I was serving on, used to come to every meeting, and I ran for office, I think it was twice. And finally, on the third time, I got elected, and I got a wonderful card from Joan saying, "Good for you, it's about time." And I still have that card to this day on my bookcase, right there where I can see it. So thank you, and thank you for what you did for all these years.
Joan, come on up. I got something for you.
A proclamation, 56th Annual Professional Municipal Clerks Week, May 4th through May 10th, 2025. Whereas the office of the professional municipal clerk is a time-honored and vital part of local government that exists throughout the world and is the oldest profession among public servants. And whereas the municipal clerk provides a professional link between the citizens, the local government bodies, and the agencies of government, and have pledged to be mindful of their neutrality and impartiality, rendering equal service to all. Whereas municipal clerks continually strive to improve the administration through participation in education programs, seminars, and the annual meetings of their state, county, and international professional organizations. Now therefore, I, Dave Kurzman, Mayor of the Town of Sewell's Point, do hereby recognize the week of May 4th through May 10th, 2025 as Professional Municipal Clerks Week.
Very good.
And Finance Manager, we also now have the proclamation for Historical Preservation Month.
A
If you could read.
proclamation declaring Historic Preservation Month in Sewell's Point, Florida. Whereas historic preservation is an effective tool for revitalizing neighborhoods, fostering local pride, and maintaining community character. And whereas historic preservation is relevant for communities across the nation, both urban and rural, and for Americans of all ages, all walks of life, and all ethnic backgrounds. And whereas 2025 marks the 100th anniversary of Martin County, a milestone that highlights the importance of preserving the county's rich history, cultural heritage, and architectural legacy for future generations. And whereas the town of Sewell's Point has been incorporated for 68 years and shares in the rich history of Martin County with some of the honored historians as residents of the town. And whereas historic preservation plays an important role in our lives, and we should celebrate the contributions made by dedicated individuals in helping to preserve the tangible aspects of the heritage that has shaped us as people. And whereas the Martin County Historic Preservation Board has planned events throughout Martin County during the month of May to increase awareness and the need for public participation in historic preservation in order to save our local treasures. Now therefore be it proclaimed by the Sewell's Point Town Commission that the month of May 2025 has been declared as Historic Preservation Month in Sewell's Point, Florida. Furthermore, the Town Commission calls upon the people of Sewell's Point to join their fellow citizens across the United States in recognizing and participating in this special observance as Martin County celebrates its centennial year.
Mr. Price, come on up.
Not much to say. You said everything. I think you got the same talking points I did today, right? The only thing I will point out is that there's going to be 33 different events throughout the month that we'll have, starting off with our kickoff event, May 1st, which will be downtown Stewart, and then we'll have our Preservation of the Year Award, which will be May 15th, which will be at the Elliott Museum. I'll be bringing by, or someone will be bringing by a stack of all the different events that we'll be having throughout the month. And there should be some exciting ones to go to, celebrating the 100th year of Mark County.
Great.
All right, thank you, guys.
Thank you
very
so much. Are there any additions, deletions, to changes to the agenda?
I'd like to,
Vice Mayor?
remove the minutes from April 8th from the agenda and put it under discussion as letter C.
All right, do we have,
That's my motion.
oh, that's,
Motion to accept the agenda with the
Commissioner Sidicus?
After his change, well, I have another change, if you want
by all means.
to. I'd like to have the Sunshine Land Design contract pulled up from the consent agenda and placed under discussion.
I'll make a motion to accept the agenda with those two changes as provided.
In favor.
Second.
All in favor?
Second.
Okay. Roll call?
Call the roll.
Vice Mayor Burrell?
Yes.
Commissioner Fender?
Yes.
Commissioner Titicus?
Yes.
Mayor Kurzman?
Yes. All right. Let's go to discussion on the minutes.
Excuse, just point of order, I think you still have to pass the consent agenda, even though it's got one item on it.
Okay.
Sorry to interrupt.
I'm sorry, I thought,
Motion to accept the consent agenda?
Second.
roll call.
Commissioner Fender?
Yes.
Commissioner Titicus?
Yes.
Mayor Kurzman?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Burrell?
Yes.
All right, now we're going to go into discussion. Let's start with the minutes.
Okay. I was listening to the recordings of the minutes from April 8th, and I found that there was a conflict in what was said in the minutes. I asked the question about how much we had spent for grants, and I was told one of the answers was, I don't know. I believe when I went back, I listened to it, it said, I don't know off the top of my head. But the answer was still, I don't know. So in the new minutes, I found that they changed it, or someone changed it.
This is April 8th we're talking about, right?
Yeah, April 8th,
Okay.
changed it, went in and changed the minutes on what was said. Now, my only concern about that is that if you do it this time, what happens if it's something really major that's in the minutes that really counts? Can someone go back and just say, okay, I want to review the minutes and then make a change?
What line item are you referring to?
Yeah. That is the part where I asked a question about finance director responded that she did not have,
Page?
now it's, yeah, page,
Page 9.
yeah, something, yeah, not, 3.
Okay, all right.
And it said the finance director responded that she did not have that information. Well, she responded that she did not know and went back after asking for the minutes, went back and changed them. And then now they're representing the minutes. I know it's minor, I know it's something, but it's something that should be discussed. The minutes are done by, at that time, was April, and she was also in charge of the agenda. And so during her absence, the agenda got changed, which I didn't think was a big deal, but it is a big deal, because she was in charge of the agenda. And ordinance 323 states that the only people who can actually do anything with the agenda is the attorney and the commissioners. And no one else can really go in there and change the agenda or add anything to the agenda without a commissioner approving it. So I just want to make that clear, that it's our agenda as far as the commission is concerned. And I have some of the information here about the agenda. I'm going to pass them now.
What's
The agenda,
of this? Yes.
Take a look at that.
232.
No, sir. That's the duties and responsibilities of the manager. That was in 2006. The one you're referring to is in 1978, so it probably needs to be clarified.
Then why is it still in the books? That's my other question.
Probably just needs to be
That's
clarified,
the
but
case.
I don't think we had a town manager in 1978, so my assumption is that it would
We had
probably...
Brad Jones in 1978.
Right. So she handled everything. So, but I sent this to you. I guess you didn't get a chance to see it. So, but I did want to bring it up that under section 190, that's the duties of the town manager, and that's placing matters on the agenda.
Well, I don't know, so we better do something about it. That's all I can say. It's got to be one way or the other.
All right, let's go to,
I'm
I'm
curious,
just more
is it more
concerned about
to,
changing the minutes than anything. I mean,
Well, the official minutes are the ones that you vote on here, okay? The rest are really drafts. Even this one's a draft, so if it's found to be incorrect by things that you have heard on the minutes and it's a draft. Until you approve it and it's signed, then those are the official minutes of the meeting.
Okay, so what we're going to do is just clarify that statement? Or do we have to
Sure.
go back and listen to it and then clarify it?
Well, we can delay the approval of these minutes to the next meeting, and we can go back and listen to it.
we'll
because we have it
table,
correct.
we'll table the minutes to the next meeting.
That would be what I'd recommend.
Yes,
Okay, so we're going to take a vote on that?
yes.
Bob, just,
I'd like to make,
We've got a couple comments. Yes, go ahead. Commissioner Titicus.
yeah, I had a conversation with Mr. Daniels about this yesterday. And I pointed out to Mr. Daniels, and apparently he told me he was unaware of the process that took place. But the town clerk sends out a copy of the draft minutes to the commissioners for the commissioners to review. And if there are any changes that a commissioner desires, they tell the town clerk what they think is different than what's recorded in the minutes. Town clerk then sends that back out to the commissioners and says, Commissioner Titicus has requested this change because of such and such. And the commissioners have an opportunity to opine on it, and then those are the minutes that are submitted for approval at the meeting. I don't see any reason to change that. And apparently there was a recent email that was sent to the town clerk, and I think also the commissioners got a copy of it. It said basically, please send the draft minutes to Bob and I for proofreading and approval before sending to the commissioners. That's unacceptable. It comes here first. If you get it at the same time, and Mariah gets it at the same time, I don't have a problem with that. Y'all can opine in terms of what you think it should be, but it should come to the commission first, and not to the town manager, nor to the town finance director for approval.
May I comment?
Yes.
There are issues of correctness and problems with the work product. So my intent was to review it to make sure, not of the content that came from the meeting, but of the work product that's coming out. And I do want to present the best work product that we can. And that's why I wanted to see the minutes ahead of time. And I had asked our town clerk if she could share the minutes with me after she does them so I can proof them. And, I've constantly asked her to have her work proofed, and it wasn't done. So I don't really want to go through that issue right now, but I'm just telling you, it was just primarily to make sure that our work product was correct, not the minutes themselves.
just seems that we're bypassing the clerk, and that's the job of the clerk to do that.
Well, if
You know,
you-
I mean,
I'm sorry.
if you're gonna proofread everything that she does, or the clerk does, I mean, you know, and especially if you're gonna, say that when you write her up about doing certain things about it, she has the right to change the agenda format, and only her, really, because that's in her purview. I mean, I don't think that anybody should just walk in and say, well, I want to change the agenda, I want to change the format of the agenda, without at least consulting with the clerk. And I believe that happened. So, that's one of the issues I have with it. But other than that, you can run with it if you want.
Commissioner Fender.
I'm going to hold my comments for now.
Okay. Commissioner
Well, I'd
Fender.
just like to know what's the line between, you know, striving for accuracy and sanitizing.
I don't sanitize anything.
I'll tell you, you know, what with the change that was made here could be construed in that manner.
Well, I wasn't involved in the change that was made here, but if there's a difference between how you spell there, T-H-E-R-E, or the there, T-H-E-I-R, I think is an important factor. You all might not think that is, but I think it is, because it looks for the work product.
I don't think that's the issue, Bob.
Well, that's my issue.
The issue was,
Let's,
didn't have the information
this
versus
is-
didn't know.
this is an internal discussion at this point. Let's go on to the next part, which would be,
You don't have internal discussions.
well,
There's no such thing.
this
for
is,
us.
this is something internal within the office at this point, and that's something that shouldn't be taking place in public.
Well, this is the only place that the commission, or the commissioners have to do that, I believe.
Was there a motion to table before?
Yeah.
Was there a motion
Yeah.
to table?
No action on it.
Okay. I just didn't know if it was seconded or not. I didn't hear it seconded.
All right. We
Give
were,
me just a minute. Okay. May I maybe clear up the issue?
go right ahead.
That would be nice.
I mean, it's up to you if you want me to continue or not, but,
Go ahead.
Yeah,
Might
you
as
have
well
an
finish
explanation.
where we started, please.
okay. The original wording, let me get my glasses, I'm sorry. The original wording is Vice Mayor Burrill requested the average cost for the grants that had been written and requested on the town's behalf, to which the finance director responded she did not have that information.
No, she said, according to the, well, I'm not going to get into it now. Because I listened to
Well-
listened to it.
Can I go through page 3, which is the minutes that are here? It says the exact same thing.
Yeah.
It says here, finance director responded that she did not have that information.
In front of her.
Well, in front of her or not, she didn't have the
Well, I'm just
information.
saying, she said, off
But
the
it's
top of my
exactly
head.
the same that's
she
in
said,
here.
Off the top of my head, I don't know.
Okay.
You want to listen to it? Go ahead
But
and
it's the
listen.
same that's in the copy that you said that our clerk sent out to you. It's the same thing. I just read it.
It
that's
says
why I don't
Off the top of my
understand.
head, I don't know? Is that what you
That-
just said?
No, I'm
So-
reading,
It's not the same thing.
okay. We're talking about two versions, and that's fine. I'm done.
All right, Commissioner Titigus.
Well, I would submit that the original that was circulated by the town clerk to the commissioners basically said, to which the finance director responded she did not know. And, and it wasn't that didn't have that information. And I pulled the other set of minutes, and I looked at them, and I looked at these, made a note within the book at the time when I was reviewing it last Friday, and wrote down the original wording. So I don't think you have the originals in front of you, Bob.
I'll show this to you later.
All right, let's go to, we're going to table the minutes. Can we have a roll call on tabling the minutes?
Who seconded it?
I'll second it.
Okay, we have a motion and a second.
Commissioner Titicus?
No.
For not tabling?
Right.
Commissioner Kurzman?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Burrell?
Yes.
Commissioner Fender?
Yes.
Okay, next up for discussion would be Sunshine Land Design. Commissioner Titicus.
Yeah, Sunshine Land Design contract, and the contract that was originally submitted to us at the last meeting, there was an addendum number 1 in the contract, which has been omitted from the contract. And addendum number 1 had it was from Captech, that basically said, what's the engineer's probable cost estimate of project? 1.2 million for water main replacement, 1.2 million for low-pressure force main installation, totals up to 2.4 million. The contract itself, if you flip to page 18, and you look at Article 4 contract price, it says, the owner shall pay the contractor on completion of work to the amount of $2,900,000. I had an opportunity to request, 2 weeks ago, I requested why the difference in the numbers. And yesterday, when I met with Mr. Daniels, I requested, what's the difference in the numbers? It's $500,000, it's 20% of the contract amount. It's not like it's a few cents. And I have yet to get a response.
Can I respond?
Yes.
As I mentioned to you yesterday, after I found out the information, that was a discussion between 2 attorneys. We had Susan was the first attorney, the second attorney was Elizabeth. And as Elizabeth did not want the amendment because that's actually from the bid document, and that's what was projected by the town engineer to be the cost. And I explained that yesterday to you, and then the bids came in, and the bid was 2.9, I guess. I don't have it sitting in front of me, but the bid was 2.9. So I did explain it to you yesterday why there was a difference, and I do have the town engineer here. He can fill you in further, or the Mr. Tersivia, our town attorney.
You did explain why this was taken out of the contract. Reasonable explanation, no problem with that. But then I asked you, I said, okay, this was received, or at least addendum 1 that was prepared by Captech was done on the 19th of November. Asked you how much later those bids came in. You said probably within a 30-day period of time. So within a 30-day period of time, the estimation that our town engineer anticipated the bids came in, and the actual bid was $500,000 difference. I wanted to know what's the $500,000 difference.
Okay.
That was my question.
Right. I couldn't answer that yesterday, and I couldn't answer it today, but our town engineer's here. Maybe he will know the answer.
Joe, can you help us?
To be honest with you, I'm not prepared to answer that question, because I can find that answer for you. I mean, I didn't think the numbers were that much different from what we bid versus what we estimated, but I can look into that for you, but I wasn't aware that was going to be a question tonight, and I'm not prepared, because I need to see the documents that show the numbers. But I know this number came in, and it's within the budget we proposed at the time, but I don't know the specifics on the numbers that you're talking about tonight, so I know these changes for tonight were based on some items that the attorneys asked to be put into the contract. It really wasn't relative to the cost, so that's why I'm sorry I'm not prepared to talk about the cost issue. But I can find that out for you.
Please.
Yeah.
I mean, it's a big number, Joe, it's 20%.
Yeah, it is. And, I will tell you that in this, and this is a little different, in the contract that was bid, there was some mix-ups in the numbers of the way they normally give us a cost estimate, and they were not adding up, okay? And basically, because what we do is, I just want to let you know the procedure. We basically, when we get a bid, we check the numbers, okay? We announce the bid at the bid opening, okay? Then we go back and we check the numbers. I will tell you that the number was different. It certainly wasn't $500,000 difference, okay? It didn't change who the low bidder was, but there was some differences in that number. So I just want you to know, I remember that issue was there, and so we asked the contractor to clarify his bid, and basically, we did do that between the time it bid and the time we made our recommendation, okay? But it was nowhere near $500,000. It was a lot less number than that. So that's not the reason, that's not the issue you're talking about. I'm just trying to make sure you know, if you see some different numbers that I give you, that when we first opened up the bid, it was one way, and then we said, you need to clarify your bid. He did, and basically, he still was the low bidder, okay? So I just want to let you know that was in that issue also, but I'm sorry, I don't know the answer to your question right now.
Thank you.
Counsel?
I would just say that, the way Bob explained it was correct when Susan had reviewed this, and this addendum number 1, which really didn't belong in the contract, because it was the bid that came in. And then, so this was Joe's estimate, right, the 2.4, but the actual bid that came in the contract was 2.9. So but 2.9 is the number in the contract. 2.4 was the estimate that really didn't belong in the contract at all, because it was simply an estimate that Joe did when he was going out for bid and saying, the vendor asked a question, if I can borrow this a second. The vendor asked a question that says, what is the engineer's probable cost estimate? And the response that Joe gave back in November was $1.2 million for water main, $1.2 million for LPFM replacement. So that doesn't belong in the contract, so you're right about that. And in terms of what the number is, again, for Joe, he wasn't prepared for that tonight to tell you why it's 2.9. Obviously, the bid came in $500,000 more, or some number higher than what the estimate was in November.
Yes, Commissioner Davis.
I mean, I had no problem pulling this out.
Right.
And I agree, maybe it didn't belong in there. What I didn't understand was the $500,000 difference. And what I just heard Mr. Capra say was that the bid came in higher, but it wasn't $500,000 higher. So where did the 2.9 number come from?
Well, in the old days, we would say that's a $64,000 question. Now it's a $500,000 question.
Right.
It's a good question. It's a very good question.
But I raised this issue over 2 weeks ago.
Commissioner Fender?
Yeah, I was just gonna ask the question as well. I'm somewhat visual, so, I'm looking at numbers on contract. And now, do I understand that this is the contract that was in the consent agenda that we pulled out to discuss?
Yes.
So it would have been approved had we not been able to discuss it, so I guess I'm glad you pulled it out. But now I'm hoping we can get some clarity on all the numbers, and certainly in light of the fact that we've lost some future grants that I'm concerned about. So I just now want to see how 2.9 impacts the overall budget, which I just heard you say does not negatively, so that's what I'd really like to, and I think we had this overall budget framework a couple of meetings ago. If we can pull that matrix back out, I don't know if you can do it tonight, but certainly by next meeting, especially since we pulled this contract out to review, unless we can get some clarity on the approval of it, because I don't want to hold up the project.
Mayor, may I?
Yes, please.
This particular project, there's two components to it. One of it is the Martin County Utilities. They are reimbursing us for the expenditures to put in their water line. So it's, the quote came in at 1.2. If there's a change order or something, they pay for the change order amount. The second part of the bid, which is the low-pressure force main, that's being funded by a grant already, an $8.4 million grant, of which we've spent roughly $2 million of so far. And so there's definitely enough 1.2 million or whatever the part of it that it is. There's enough money within the grant dollars to pay for that. Again, that's a reimbursable grant. The index or the matrix that you were talking about was when we were figuring out the cash flows.
Yep.
And, we can present that again at the next meeting if you'd like to see it. It does affect the, how we're going to proceed with Phase 2 of the resiliency, because that's the one that we needed more money on to start with. But we're working on ways to see if we can address that. But I'll be more than happy to put that report together for the next meeting.
That's fine. That would be great to see, but you've answered my questions on this particular contract, and I'm comfortable with it now, so thank you.
Thank you.
Commissioner Titikus.
Yeah, I would like to see a variance analysis between the estimate that Captech put together of $2.4 million and the contract here for $2.9 million. I want to know what's the $500,000 going for.
Well, we have the option tonight to either approve this or, once again, table it, but I don't know if we can table it. Does this have to be approved tonight to?
Well,
the
we're
grants?
running close to the 90-day mark if we haven't gone over it already, but I think my suggestion would be, see if there's somebody that would like to make a motion and you have a second and take a vote, and if not, then, we'll come back at the next meeting and bring you what you need.
If we wait to the next meeting, this isn't going to endanger our grants.
It won't endanger the grant itself, but there's a possibility we might have to go to rebid if it's past the 90 days.
And how far past the 90 days will we be? Any idea?
Do you
Joe?
have an idea?
Why did we let it go this far?
Because there were some questions that we needed to work out, and I'm assuming one of them was probably the one that we're dealing with now that Joe says was worked out. But, whatever you all want to do, I don't, like I said, it doesn't bother me, and if we end up.
Joe, please.
Yeah,
We bid this project, okay, and you cannot go forward until the interlocal agreement between yourselves and the county happens. That just happened today, okay? And basically, they postponed it for their reasons, just like you sometimes postpone it. Again, another issue that we've been working with is Mariah's doing a great job of keeping the balls in the air, but we have cash flow. So we quite frankly, by plans, we've delayed this a little bit so that we can make sure we don't have all these contracts and all this money going out the door at the same time, because we need cash flow. These are all reimbursable grants. We have to spend the money to get the money back. So of course, we obviously have to make sure when we bid these projects, we want to get the right number. We obviously want to make sure we can get reimbursed for them. And of course, we obviously got to put them in order. What this document here was about was, I believe, some legal terms that they wanted to make sure were in the contract. And that's the only reason that this is here, okay? Now, I'll be happy to go through everything and the dollars and the estimates and so forth. We have expanded this project because, as you know, we had to negotiate the number of units we could have on this, because they told us 340 units, right? Which means we could go to 171. So we're trying to figure out, well, where are those 171 going to be? And of course, we put them mainly in low-lying areas. That's what we did. So during the period of time, we've done all sorts of little adjustments and so forth. So does that explain the $500,000? I'm not aware that there's a $500,000 issue here. I will look into it, and I'm trying to figure out what estimates you looked at, because my point being is we do estimates at various times during the project, and there's a possibility that we had a lower estimate, but then when we got down to the final estimate, when we were bidding it, of course, the number gets closer, because I don't think our numbers were that far off from what we predicted they would be, because there's plenty of money in the grants, there's plenty of money, the county had no problem approving this contract. So to answer all the questions, I really need to go and look at the numbers for you in the sequence of timing. I don't have any problem doing that for you. Quite frankly, we are outside the 90 days. We've known we've been outside the 90 days. Sunshine has been willing and working with us on letting us be out of the 90 days. I think at this point, let's just table it, get the answers that you want, and be done with it. And I don't think there's any reason to debate it, because I don't have the information in front of me, that's all.
I'm just
Well,
curious.
go ahead.
Commissioner Fender.
Sorry.
I was going to ask a couple clarifying questions because I really would like to see this move forward, and I just want to make sure I understand the context that we're talking about. To me, this is the utilities subcomponent of the larger project, right? And this is also, correct me if I'm wrong, covered by the $8.4 million grant for conversion. Is that false?
That's correct, that's correct.
Okay, so it is. And the variance you see in the contract that's provided, still within the budget of what we discussed previously, whether it was a delta in the estimate or not, still covered in the confines of project Phase 3, right? Is that what we're talking about?
No, it's part 2 of the septic to sewer, and it's
Okay.
the water line for Phase 3.
That's my
or
point.
phase-
This is a utilities,
Yes.
it's not impacting the larger initiative. This is covered,
Correct. So this project, Phase 2, as you know, we have to get the sewer main, first of all, the county utility department, whenever we go into an area, don't think of Phase 3, because that's all been done long ago. We did the water and sewer mains for Phase 3 area, and now we're building the storm drainage facilities. That's Phase 3. Phase 2, which is going to be the next project, we have to get the water and sewer lines put in place before we go put the drainage in. Okay, we still don't have enough money to pay for the drainage yet, but we have enough money to pay for the utilities, and we therefore would not approve, the Martin County utilities
Let me
are
ask
paying
it a
for the
different-
water,
Yeah.
and your septic to sewer grant are paying for the sewers.
I was going to press forward, but you said table it if you want, and you'll go back and get more information. I always like more information, but I'm more worried about cost at a later date, especially in the era of tariffs and whatnot. What's the negative downside impact of tabling it for another 2 weeks or a month? I don't know how long it takes.
Well, I don't know, I
I
can't
mean, we're
predict
concerned
tariffs,
about a
sorry.
$500 delta right now. I mean, if we're beyond our 90 days, what is, what's our risk of going farther beyond the 90 days?
Again, I've not been involved with the issues with tariffs before, I can't tell you.
Well,
I mean, we've been
Use that as an
through
example.
areas, up to this point, Sunshine has honored the contract unit prices. So I guess the question is, tomorrow I'll find out, are you honoring the prices? Because every time I've called them in the past, they said we're still honoring the prices.
Okay.
Do their prices go up from
If we
time?
approve this contract today, based on what it is, and you go to them tomorrow, and you'll have something tangible to see, are you honoring the prices? They don't have to look into the future to see if they're going to continue to honor the prices without a signed contract. Right? The farther we kick this down the road, the more risk there is of
That's
price
true.
increase.
Yeah.
That's really my thesis here.
And that could happen.
If,
I can't guarantee that.
if
but-
there's a problem with this tomorrow and and you get on the phone with them, they say, no, we need our answer, we are going to be having another meeting in a week, an emergency meeting to vote on this.
Say that one more time?
No, but we would have to, if they say
Oh.
2 weeks it expires, and then we'd probably have to come back in another week and do this again.
Well, if we're out of time already,
Yeah.
so even if we don't do it, and they still have to sign that agreement. So anytime between now and the time they sign that agreement, they can increase their rates. And then we'd have to come back and get another approval from
Yeah,
you all.
they have worked nicely with us since as far back as I can remember. We've never had a problem with him.
Yeah, but what Commissioner Fenner points out, prices of all sorts of infrastructure materials goes up all the time, okay? I have not seen anything that would change this bid at this moment, but and unfortunately, I don't normally give them the window to say, they can adjust the price. And that's where I would like to be on this, but we have pushed it down the road a little bit.
That window either.
Commissioner Titicus.
I don't think that there's any reason why we should be here at this juncture, to be honest with you, because on the 7th of April, I raised the issue. And on the 7th of April, this item was pulled from the agenda because of the fact that the attorneys were reworking some of the language in the contract. And I had also raised the issue with, we got a $500,000 difference. What's the $500,000 difference from? I again raised the issue yesterday, the 21st of April, prior to this meeting. Said we got a $500,000 difference. What's the $500,000 difference between Joe's estimate and the bid that should have come in within a 30-day period of time? Now, I mean, there should be an answer here today. Not let's kick this down the road for 2 weeks. I would love nothing better than to approve this contract and move forward with it because it's something that has to get done and we're within a 90-day window. But at the same time, I mean, there's a huge discrepancy. You're not talking of $100,000. You're talking of a 20% differential in the contract price, $500,000, $500,000.
Not arguing.
Well, I've heard him say it's not
Yes.
that.
So this was bid, and then you approved Sunshine, because we had a discussion about, the only reason I'm bringing this up is at that time you approved the dollar amounts. You pretty much, the only thing that was a question, if I recall this properly, is you questioned whether Sunshine was going to do the directional drilling themselves or they were going to subcontract it out. And so my only reason for bringing that up is the dollar stuff, and the reason why I've not been involved with this, again, from an engineering standpoint, is the price was already agreed when we approved that, and I don't even know the date. Mariah probably could look it up, but the fact is, it was months ago. You approved this contract with the dollar values, and I don't have a problem with the question being asked, okay? I'm just pointing it out. You've already approved in the meeting. Did I miss something, or was that a recommendation to come back to another meeting with a final number?
What we approved was the bid process and chose the lowest bidder option. And I believe, if I recall what the amounts were at the time, I think it was 2.9.
We've only given you the number one time, okay? As far as the numbers, what we were going to pay this contractor. Again, maybe you didn't approve it, it was a workshop. Maybe that's what I'm confused about.
No, it was an approval. What happens is, the way our process works, when we go out and we do a bid, and we bring those results back, you validate it, and then we publish the list of how the bids went, the different parties, and what the amount was, and then I put it on the agenda for the meeting here, and they accept the bid.
Okay.
And that's what we did.
Vice Mayor.
My question is, forget about the money, okay, right now. But my question is, why did it take 2 weeks to get an answer from the question? That's my only concern, like, we took 2 weeks to get you an answer, now we have to wait another week or two to
Get an
vote on
answer.
this, you know?
Commissioner Fender.
So there's a couple layers of issues here. Part of it I'm going to ignore for now because we can't solve it here, but we do need to do business and move forward. So I'll ask the attorney what the changes were in this contract that were required to be changed, because I assume it's not the number. I assume it's some clauses of
Correct. It was not the number. It was that, again, that proposed addendum 1 should not have been part of the package, because that was simply a response that Joe's team gave to prospective bidders as to what they were estimating this project would be. So that didn't belong in the contract.
So this is what we pulled out of
Right, that got
this
pulled out.
contract, okay?
And then, instead of that addendum 1, and then you had addendum 2, you now have addendum 1 that deals with state law issues, like it's got to comply with sunshine law, scrutinized companies, and addendum 2, all the federal requirements.
Okay.
And I believe only one of those was in the last meeting. I think we missed one of those two.
Both of them.
They both were in there?
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
There were 3 addendums.
There were 3, okay.
Addendum 1.
So that was the only difference then, really, is taking that out.
And then the open issue is why the delta between the initial estimate and what came back in the bid is you're
Right.
raising your question. I'm going to assume that the number hasn't changed. If I find I'm wrong about that, obviously, that'll be a third layer of concern that we can talk about. But that said, I really don't want to hold up this contract. I want to move it forward. We're in a weird dire state, but I'll make the motion to accept the contract for utility improvements Part 2 as provided, given the data that we've heard tonight from both the town engineer and Commissioner Titikus, understanding that the discrepancy that Commissioner Titikus has rightly identified was the original estimate. So that said, my motion is to approve the contract as provided.
Do we have a second on that? I'll pass the gavel. I'll make
Second on that motion?
a second.
Okay,
We have a second?
keep in mind that we're in a weird dais
Yeah.
configuration here.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You want to call?
So before we call the vote and before I pull my motion, if the motion fails, what is step 2? Do we bring it back next week, or does it die somehow?
Glenn?
Well, if you make a motion and it fails, generally to bring that motion back, somebody on the prevailing side, in this case, it would be if 2 council members voted no, one of them would have to make a motion to reconsider the contract. So you then reconsider. I'm gonna make a guesstimate that, let's make believe you're gonna vote no. So if you voted no, you would quote win tonight because you made a motion, the other side, they didn't prevail, you prevailed in kind of stopping it. So you would have to make a motion next meeting to say, I want to reconsider that vote. You'd have to vote at least 3-2 to reconsider it, and then you have a second motion that says, I want to approve that contract. So it's doable, it's
Yes.
just a little bit of it's the 2-step tango.
All right, that said, I'm so far comfortable with that. Go ahead.
Titikus.
Would you consider an amendment to your motion?
Sure.
That this is approved contingent upon the commissioners receiving the variance analysis within the next 7 days?
Absolutely.
Yes.
Okay, you want to revise your motion?
I said a lot in my motion. I'll accept I'd like to make a motion to approve the utility improvement contract as provided, assuming that the numbers continue are the same numbers that we had previously, with the addition of a 7-day response from town staff
To a variance analysis of the $500,000.
to a variance analysis of the missing $500,000 that Commissioner Titikus has identified.
Okay, do we have a second?
I'll second it.
We have a motion, we have a second. Want to call roll?
Commissioner Fender,
Yes.
Commissioner Titikus,
Yes.
Mayor Kurzman,
Yes.
Vice Mayor Burrell.
Yes.
Thank you. Is that-
Let the record show I'm passing the gavel back.
Thank you. All right,
That was hard.
yeah. All right, now we're on to, there is no old business, there is no new business, so we go on to staff and commission comments. Let's start with staff.
No comments.
Okay, commission comments.
Yeah, I'm gonna let you go first.
Go ahead, Commissioner Fender.
So, I just want to say thanks to staff for the wonderful event on Easter weekend. I thought that was a great job. Chief always does a wonderful job, and it's a beautiful event that brings our community together, and we love to continue to foster those types of community developing activities. So thanks to entire staff, town manager, Mariah, chief, especially who drives the bus, and also her staff that helps make it possible, and town manager staff that makes it possible. That said, I feel like, I should also thank you for, I think you made an excellent donation of some chocolate bunnies as well, Mr. Jack.
No, I'm talking about the actual bunny.
Oh, I'm sorry, Jack, my
secret.
apologies, absolutely too. Lots of hard work by all, so thank you all, including Jack. But I would say that the elephant in the room in this kind of awkward meeting has been some underlying tone of disharmony, which I'm not in favor of. I think the staff has to congeal, work together. Everyone needs to, I'll say, get along or find a way to congeal a staff that is effective and customer-oriented and positive. So I'm going to leave it at that, but I think the leadership in town has to drive that bus and find a way to achieve harmoniousness, if that's the word I'm looking for. That's all I got.
Commissioner Tikis.
I got two issues. One is that there were no financials that were provided this month, and they came out today and said that they would be on the agenda for next month. Article 4, Section 2 of the town charter says that will be submitted to the commission a monthly report showing the condition of all funds. And so I expect the financials on a monthly basis. Number one. Number two is I would like to put on the agenda for our next meeting that we schedule a workshop because we got a issue hanging out there in terms of the town manager's contract. That workshop should be held sometimes toward the end of June and July, since the date that Mr. Daniels started was August, and I would suggest that we have it on a Saturday so that we have maximum participation.
All right,
Need a motion for that,
oh,
right? Glenn, do we need a motion for that, or just?
Well, I would say that at your next meeting, maybe you figure out what date that's going to be. I mean,
we could put on the agenda for next week.
right, figure out,
As-
if
as
it's
discussion.
Saturday, I'm sure you'll want to check your calendars for the summer schedules and see if a Saturday works or whether it's a different weekday and things like that.
All right. And I'd like to make a few comments. The first, I also want to thank the staff for the chief as well, for the wonderful extravaganza that they put on. I've never seen so many kids and smiles all over the place. I think it was the biggest crowd I've ever seen. I don't know if anybody else could verify that, but I've never seen that many people at one of these. It was great to see the town out and about and so many people there. The other question, comment I'm going to make, over on Mandalay Road, over by Sewell's, one of the residents of Mandalay Road made a suggestion to me that if you know where the little retention areas are over there, if they could put a mirror that would reflect both sides so you could see oncoming traffic. And they even offered to pay for it. It runs, I think he said it was $169 on Amazon, and he would try and install it. If the town would be so gracious to allow that to happen, he feels it is a safety issue. When you come around, there are cars coming around, heading south toward High Point. When you're coming off of Mandalay and you want to make a left, there's many times the people that live there told me they've had a lot of close calls and accidents. And it's not just once or twice, it's many times. And it has to come to an end before somebody really does have an accident. There's been people slamming their brakes on, just missing cars. And this is something that I'd also like to possibly put up on the agenda for the next meeting. We pay for it, it's $169. Jeff could install it, it's not a rocket science that's involved with this, and it's not expensive, and it's a solution that can prevent an accident. So that was the call that I got actually, I think it was today or yesterday, during my workday. And then the third comment I have is the elephant in the room, and that really is fill dirt. And I don't know what the ordinance is on fill dirt. I've been told in the past that you weren't supposed to use fill dirt in certain situations, and if we could get fill dirt put on the agenda so we could find out what the real ordinances are and what we could do to slow down fill dirt.
Oh, filter.
Fill dirt.
Man, I thought you said filter.
No, fill dirt.
Filter. Got it. Okay, I'm with you
Yeah.
now. I'm back on board.
I still hold part of a New Jersey accent, I'm sorry.
I get,
And,
That's not the elephant in the room, by the way.
no, but it's brought up a lot, so,
well,
Commissioner Titicus.
at the last meeting, there was an ordinance that we discussed that got sent to Mr. Torsivia to research. And I sent an email to Mr. Torsivia and to Mr. Daniels, basically saying that when I went in and looked at our ordinances, there was a conflict. In one section of the ordinance, because Commissioner Burrill challenged me when I said you could build on fill, he said, no, it's not allowed. So I went and I did some research, and what I found was that there's a conflict in our ordinances. Somewhere in one part of the ordinance, it says you can build on fill, the other part, it says you got to build an elevated structure in a flood zone. And so I sent Glenn and Bob an email saying, hey, we have this conflict, when you're addressing this ordinance that's going to come back next month at the next meeting, that somewhere along the line, we need to resolve that conflict.
Well, it goes even beyond that, because if I want to buy a lot, let's say on River Road, I could bring in 400 or 500 loads of fill dirt, and where does it say I can't do that? That actually happened over by Margarita and on the intersection Margarita and Mandalay, 500 tandems of fill dirt. That's what you got. You built a hill that wasn't there. It was level property going straight out from River Road. It
But you
wasn't.
need a permit to do that, I would imagine.
We issued the permit because I have to assume that the ordinance says you can't deny it. There's got to be something. We have to be able to say, and our biggest problem is flooding. The number one cause of flood is when you put in fill dirt in an area that normally would hold water. And now you're also pushing the water going east. And then, so this is more water for the east side of the road and caused by fill dirt. And this is why I want to get on the agenda so we could bring it up for discussion. And I feel this is something that can't be ignored any longer. We really need to do this. If you look, even going North Sewell's Point Road, there was a lot of fill dirt brought in over there. And, those, we should have protected ourselves. These things could have been built on pylons. And, I feel strong on that. But, Vice Mayor.
The ordinance is 421. That's the ordinance that says no fill. You have to use pylons in the flood hazard zones. On the bluff, what I call the bluff, on the west side, you have to use a certain type of fill. You can't just throw any kind of dirt. Okay, you need a certain type of fill. It has to be approved by DEP. That's in the same ordinance, it says that. So maybe that's what the conflict is, okay? But at 421, it was originally ordinance 404, In 2021, this commission changed it to 421 and decided that there's no more fill, that's it. Okay? You have to put it on pylons in the flood zones. Also, it says in that ordinance that you can't change the direction of the water flow. If you put in fill on the waterfront out there, it's gonna change the direction, and it's gonna change it to your neighbor's house. That also says it in there. So there's a lot of issues in that same ordinance. So maybe we have to clean it up. I don't know. You know, I just read those parts of the ordinance, and the parts that stuck out to me was that it says no fill along the water hazard, along the east side. It's a hazard. That's the flood hazard area.
I'm going to go right to council.
Yeah, we've been working on a report for the next meeting and attaching those different ordinances, and I'll obviously work with Bob and Joe and make sure we're all on the same page in terms of what that report's going to say, so we hopefully get some clarity in the fill question. Because you're right, it's mentioned in different places,
Right.
and you're right, it's mentioned in different places, so let's figure out what it says now, and then you give direction as to, do you want to keep it that way, do you want to change it, how do you want to clarify it? So we'll kind of.
Doesn't DEP have anything, I think DEP has something to say about what type of fill you can use.
That's part of what we're including, right?
Okay. So it's all part of this.
I'm sorry, who?
No, that's okay. There's just there's a clear bifurcation in terms of what you're looking at. You know, on one hand, you're looking at the east side, which is lower, and then on the other hand, you're looking at the west side, which is sitting on a ridge. And so, you know, I don't think you can apply the same standard that everybody's got to build on. Everybody has to build on pilings, because obviously the west side is not in a flood zone, you know.
Yeah.
That's what I thought 421 addressed. That's what 421 addressed. It addresses that. I don't know if it says it clearly, okay, but it does address that.
But we'll bring it back in black and white. Hopefully.
Yeah.
Yeah, I look forward to seeing that. And Commissioner Fender.
I'll preface my comments with that I'm not super passionate about this issue, but I've been quietly biting my tongue every time this topic comes up. So I'll just throw out my thought, right? Not that my thought will win, but you struck a nerve when you said we can't control the redirection of water flow. And whether we can or can't, I don't know, but I can tell you that the aesthetic value to me of building houses on stilts is not as great as somebody building a house on a small hill that's above the floodplain. And I sort of believe that we're spending millions of dollars raising South Sewell's Point Road 1.5 feet to do exactly what you say we can't do when we build houses, right? Because we are redirecting the flood water plain by raising the road. And so, I don't know, I don't want to live in a stiltville, and I sort of feel like to protect these people from flooding, they need to raise their homes. They don't necessarily need to raise it on stilts. They could put, you're using the term fill dirt in, but I would say raise the level of their property. The concern is their neighbors who don't, and, they can't push floods that way. But I'm not an engineer. I would assume that when an engineer develops plans that get permitted, to your point, your extreme comment a second ago, where they brought in thousands of gallons of fill dirt and raised a mountain, I don't see that happening, right? Because I would hope that Jack would prevent it, but I would hope that our permits would not permit something like that, of building a mountain on somebody's lot.
There was a difference, because I used to walk that lot all the time to walk by the water. And you're talking maybe from the road to the high point over there was maybe 6 feet.
Yeah.
Now it's like 20-something feet.
Okay, I'm not sure what you're talking about exactly.
The same lot that I mentioned, where about 500 payloads of fill
Oh,
dirt
I'll go
came
look at
in.
it. That's interesting.
Yeah, you have to really look at
I
it to
would assume
understand.
the kind of material that gets put there is super important, because we don't want it just to leach away. and you'd also want to build on a structure that is solid, that you're building a home on. But again, I'm talking too much on this topic because I'm actually not all that passionate about it. But I keep hearing people sounding passionate about problems with fill dirt, and I personally don't have a real problem with it. I'm just saying that.
That's what I think with a lot of the
And I'd love to be
places.
educated so that I do care as prolifically as you guys do. But right now, I don't
That's-
want to see underneath my house. I'd like it
That's-
to be on a hill.
That's part of the reason why we're spending right now, because of the adjustments of those riverfront homes on the St. Lucie River. They've raised, and now what's happening, all that water's being pushed onto River Road, but the people that live on the east side are now flooding out. They weren't before that. So the answer is
The
yes,
water
it
has
does
to be
redirect.
redirected, right? I mean, it has to flow the way, and
Yeah,
that's what.
redirected across the
does
street
what?
now to where the east side of the road is, and we've seen it.
SA, right?
The perfect example, the perfect example is there's a family that lives on the corner of River Road and Margarita.
Okay, I'm talking about
Yeah.
Blue Line, by the way. I don't
Yeah,
really,
but even if it's slow line, because the water it rushes down the road, you have to see it to understand. And, it was, like I said.
I don't know why anybody up on the ridge would
Yeah, what they.
add more mountain to that ridge, but.
They built two new homes on Mandalay, on River Road. One was in a cul-de-sac, the other one on the side. They added fill dirt, and what happened, the water came rushing down Mandalay. Now we have the Cindy Lucas issue. As we go along with some of the other properties, they flooded worse than they were before in the middle of Mandalay,
See,
which,
my concern is
and
seawater encroachment. If I'm gonna build a house on the water that you're telling me I have to put stilts on, that means I have to park my car on that flat garage underneath the stilts, but I can't raise it above the floodplain. So anytime a king tide comes, my car is getting washed with salt water. How do I raise that? I mean, I guess I can put the garage on stilts as well, but it's gonna look horrific.
well, that's what some of the homes that the government has spent millions of dollars right in this neighborhood to raise these homes, so they don't have to worry about getting flooded. But you know what, if that happens, if it happens to the car, it happens to the car. I understand what you're saying, but
Let me preface all my entire comment with, I'm really focused on the low-lying waterfront. I'm not as focused, I think you can solve the problem uphill. And the flooding issue has to, the water flow issue has to
Yeah,
be engineered properly.
you're already high up on the west side, and you don't need to make it higher.
That's correct.
You don't have to add anything,
I
they're
agree with
fine.
you.
And
I
that's
agree with that.
really where it is. That one lot never had to have all that fill dirt in
Well, every
it.
time you say the word fill dirt, I only think of the east side. I
No,
never
no,
think
no.
of the west side.
Yeah, they put a lot of fill dirt over there.
To bring this
Yes.
conversation to a close, it's interesting because, and Dr. Farrow left, but where Dr. Farrow lives on North River
Yes.
Road, the water is directed into the St. Lucie River. And when you look at the water, or the maps that have been produced by Captech in terms of the outfalls and things along those lines, there's a whole bunch of them on that side. There aren't on South Sewell's Point Road, interestingly enough, to where the water is not being directed towards the St. Lucie River, but it does exactly what you say, Dave. It comes down the road. So
Yes.
somewhere along the line, we dropped the ball on an engineering or approval of permits to say, hey, you've got to direct that water and head it, in another direction out towards the river as opposed to east.
Well, won't
Yeah.
the South Silk Point Road project solve that issue?
No.
No,
Why not?
because what happens, you're creating, the water comes down at a certain speed. The higher the hill, the faster the speed of the water. It doesn't stop and pause to go into the drains like it used to. It became very slow. The higher a drop is, the faster it comes.
I don't see water standing on the road, is what I'm saying. Post phase one.
No, because the water is making it up to people. The best way I could describe it is you take the people, I'm going to go back to them again, because it's an easy example, because I've witnessed it. They live on the corner of Margarita and River Road. The water was slamming up to their front door, on the porch. It looked like rolling rapids, and they were in fear. This never happened before until...
This is where we just fixed, is that what you're talking about? The fix we put in for 27,000?
It's a Band-Aid. It's not a fix. It's a Band-Aid right now.
I walk there all the time. It seems like
It's, but we haven't had rainy season, so we don't know yet. But what happened, their porch
I've been pretty happy
was...
with the fixes, I
Yeah,
have to say that.
yeah, no, look, it's encouraging. We'll say that. But what we have to do is figure out ways so this doesn't happen again. Otherwise, what's going to happen, we're going to say, oh, we got to fix this, and it's going to cost more money. We have to go out, get more grants if we can't. The town's going to have to pay for it. And that means taxpayer money so somebody could put fill dirt on their property and have a better view, and at the taxpayer's expense.
Let's try to tie this in a bow, as Commissioner Titica says, and I agree with him that maybe the ordinance has to delineate between low-lying and high, non-low-lying
Yeah,
areas.
if you're already high up, you don't need to be higher up. You're not a king
My
at
point is,
the
whatever
end of the
ordinance
day.
you come up with, maybe talk about the differences between the two.
Yes.
And what's required.
I'm glad we had a nice oh, I'm sorry, Vice Mayor.
Well,
Yes.
as far as putting it on a hill, go down North Sewell's Point Road, look on the right side, and I think it's a little bit more than a hill.
But you're talking about
The
the
new
water
homes,
side?
yeah, the new
There's
homes.
this giant thing going on down there.
Well, I'm saying, they're a little bit more than a hill.
Yes.
Okay, that water's coming right down on North Sewell's Point Road, and North Sewell's Point Road is getting flooded more now than it ever has before because of that kind of situation.
It's because our ordinances are Swiss cheese. There's holes in them. And there's only so much our building inspector can do or we can do until things change. And I know Commissioner Titica has mentioned in the past, there's been so many ordinance changes, but because there's been so many things that have changed through the years and so many holes, we're covering ourselves legally as well as environmentally, and we're looking at different ways to prevent this so future commissions don't have to go through what we've been going through. I could tell you, I've seen dramatic changes, and since I've been up here as a commissioner, we've really made changes that everybody freaked out upon, because nobody ever thought we'd spend that much money, but we've been very blessed to get grants from the state and the federal government, and it's really worked out nicely for us. And with that,
So moved.
thanks.